Well, good evening, race fans. Welcome to Rivalz Race Chat. Finally, Clinton took a week off. I'm Adam Ross. Joining me tonight is the ever-talented Jonathan Howe, announcer from Merrittville Speedway. Jonathan, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for filling in.
Happy to be here, Adam. It's pretty cool and first appearance on the show. So, yeah, just happy to come and hang out on a Tuesday and talk some racing.
That is all we do. Now, you'll notice on the rundown, it is show number 210, and our very first guest of the night is none other than Clinton Geoffrey. And before we let Clinton onto the program, let's keep him in the green room for a little while, Spencer. I want to share something from Todd Lewis. Posted this on the socials, and folks, we want to see your opinions on this because Todd Lewis posted possible footwear that he is going to use in 2024. He just thought they looked appealing. They definitely look comfortable, but we want your conversation, folks. Give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Spencer, cue up the NASCAR Crocs. And what do you call that when you add things to it, Jonathan? Do you know?
I know the pieces. They're called like gibbets or giblets or something like that, I think is what you call adding. But I like the wing on the back for extra downforce.
It is all fairly fabulous. And Todd would have to have some impressive giblets just to wear these shoes at the racetrack. But that is what Todd Lewis posted. So, folks, feel free, chat it up. Spencer, I'm not sure. Are we going to have the chat in this window tonight or not so much? Okay. So without further ado, we've had the shoe conversation. Let's welcome the man. Drove 17 hours to get to Florida, rolled in about 3:30 this morning. We're not going to ask how many beers into the trip he is because it doesn't matter. He's on vacation, but he is here for us. Clinton Geoffrey, how's it going, man? All right, we're just muted for now, Clinton, but we'll get your sound up here.
How was that? Is that good?
There we go.
I muted you guys earlier. My mistake. Just didn't want to interrupt. Hey, it's great. Thanks, Jonathan, for filling in the seat tonight. It is pretty cool to be here at the World Center of Racing, Adam. Daytona Speedway right behind me. I don't know if you can see those big grandstands behind me, but it's pretty cool to be here in the campground. Lots of great stuff going on. As you know, Adam, it's early in the week, but things are really starting to pick up. Traffic started to pick up today. Man, what a drive. 17 and a half straight, but that's the way we roll, you know?
So about 10 miles south of where Clinton is standing right now, they are doing a 4-wide salute at New Smyrna Speedway with the ASA series. 32 cars taking the green flag. That place is overflowing with spectators. And we're going to get to that a little bit later on. If the wind is blowing right, Clinton, you'd be able to hear them, I think, from where you're at in turn 1 at the Super Speedway. But a great showing. And let's start with that, because Clinton, you are one of the snowbirds who have made the trip south. Tons of fans go down, but a lot of racers as well. Disappointment for Joe Lawrence. He did not make the show at New Smyrna. Trayton Lapsevich got in. Kyle Steckley got in, both of them in the last chance qualifier. Nicholas Noggle qualified in on time. And Cole Butcher qualified outside of the front row. So a couple of East Coasters looking to make their mark. They're about to go green. Clinton, how many Canucks have you seen so far in your first day there?
I got to tell you, so this morning we went to 7-Eleven to get coffee around 9 after grabbing about 4 hours sleep. And I had my Glenn Stires Racing shirt on. And I got to tell you, the first guy who came up to me, he said, "Are you Clinton?" I said, "Shit, I've been here 4 hours and already been recognized." So that's pretty cool. We're starting to make some rounds. And it was nice to meet Bob Miller from Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. So they're going to race out this weekend and spend some time. But, yeah, a lot of Canucks down here. I got to see Guy McPherson and Laurie, Billy Willard. A lot of them are roaming around. So a lot of the Niagara folks that we've seen are here. I talked to Bossman Glenn today. Didn't get with him. They're out celebrating someone's birthday, but celebrating a birthday. But we just come back from the Wild Wings, and we're having a good time.
Jonathan, if you had the opportunity to go to Speed Weeks, talk about your travels, because I know you're a big racing fan. Before you worked in the sport, where did you like to go for enjoyment?
See, I was always a little bit further south. I have a soft spot for Homestead Miami Speedway. I've been to Championship Weekend a couple of times, especially I think it was the year that the last time I was down there was for Jeff Gordon's retirement, or what we thought was the retirement before he came back to cover for Junior there for a little bit. But yeah, for me, this is almost like being exposed to the short track world, to the dirt world now. I almost want to get a camper and spend 3 or 4 weeks down there and really take it all in on one trip. I don't even know if that's possible, if you really could make the best of one trip, or if it's something you'd have to do over multiple trips. I don't know, Clinton. I'm sure you've gone multiple times, and you probably could advise me as a rookie if I was going to go down to Speed Weeks. Is this something you want to do over multiple weeks, or you want to pick maybe one racetrack? You want to go with the asphalt stuff one year, then go to the dirt the next year, and then you go and mix it up?
It's hard, I mean, depending on what your fan base is or what you like, you can spend a lot of money, a lot of time just going to short tracks down here during Speed Weeks. I mean, it started, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. We still got another week to go. It's really crazy. So you kind of have to pick and choose what you want. But I don't know if I can turn around here and you see some of the campers behind me. They've been rolling in all day. We're actually on the Daytona flat track here where they race go-karts and flat track bikes. We're camped right in the middle. But, yeah, it's such a tough call. I mean, Adam, you've been down a long time. There's so much to do here in Florida if you want to get racing and if you have that racing bug. I mean, whether it's pavement, you could spend, 14 days at New Smyrna, 14 days at East Bay, 14 days at Volusia. I mean, it just goes on and on, not to mention other Canadian contingent that's been racing down at Auburndale. So, I mean, no matter where you want to race, there's tons of stuff to go on. I think you really have to pick what suits you best. Like, for me, I was going to go to New Smyrna tonight. We ended up going to the NASCAR hauler. They had a bit of a NASCAR fest today across the street from this track, and we'll send some videos in on that. I think tomorrow we'll go to Volusia. And then for me, I mean, I came here to bring the kids to the big track. So we'll spend most of our time at Daytona International as much as we can when stuff's going on. And, we see a lot of short track racing with the kids and Jack, my camera guy. So it's cool to be out here. But, man, yeah, I think the big track's where it's at for me. But there's so much to do.
Yeah, Jonathan, you have to plan. You can't do it in 1 year, right? Because the Saturday night, the night before the 500 is the big night at Smyrna. It's a big night at Volusia. You really need to look at the calendar closely, decide what you want to see, and go year by year. So I must have gone 10 years in a row or so, maybe a little bit more than that. My dad came down most years, and we'd split it up between New Smyrna and Volusia. But at the time, Junior Hanley was still running, so you wanted to see him at New Smyrna. That was a big deal. And then as we got more and more into the Dirt Track Digest and that sort of thing, we migrate up to Volusia. But you've got to plan it out, decide where you want to go, and map it out. Because there's other years where it would be phenomenal to do exactly what Clint's doing. Go to the big track and focus yourself there. And because an NASCAR event, as you know, from going to Homestead, that whole weekend is an experience in itself. This is really unique in that there's 2 weeks of racing going on ahead of it, all within an hour, 2 hours drive, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's kind of why I've been listening in on some of the NASCAR circle, and there's a push to bring the Clash back to Daytona. There's also a push to maybe bring the Clash to New Smyrna and do it almost as like a headlining short track event leading into Speed Weeks. And as much as I think that would be kind of cool, I almost kind of want to leave it as is, because I feel like a lot of short track fans, and at least a lot of the dirt fans that I know, they're so invested in the dirt world that they almost want to give more time to those weekly stars and some of the guys that they might see from their neck of the woods. I mean, we had the short track super series down at Alltech even this weekend. You could double that up with Volusia if you're a dirt modified guy like I am for the most part. I mean, that's almost a trip within itself that I would love to plan to make one day.
It is. It is for sure. So first thing on the rundown, and Clinton, are you good to stay with us for a little bit, or are we burning data, or what?
Nah, I don't care. We're good. Just to answer Fran's question, am I afforded any extra perks? I'm actually down here in NASCAR business as part of our weekend deal with NASCAR. So we will be having some meetings on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to talk about that. So kind of that. And I twisted some wrists to get me into Volusia, no doubt about it.
What's the point of going if you can't pull a few strings? What I want to do, though, folks, is run you through some of how the snowbirds are doing down there. pretty solid week for the Friesen family. Stuart Friesen may not live in Niagara-on-the-Lake anymore, but we can still claim him. He won the final short track Super Series Sunshine Swing event at Alltech Raceway. His cousin James Michael Friesen took a feature win on February 8th at Alltech, so that was pretty cool for him. On the 10th of February, Corey Luciano hit the track in the Pro Late Models. He finished 13th on that night at New Smyrna. A number of TQ midget racers hauled down to race at Auburndale. And Sunday night, Andy Jankowiak, he's been a guest on our show. He won the event. Scott Kruder, former Schweigen champion and Sprint Car Nationals champion, finished 4th. And then the Canadians, Dominique Smith 6th, Daniel Hahn 8th, Darren McLennan 9th, James Stanley 10th. On that same night, Liam Martin finished 5th. Ryan Turner came from the back after getting in a lap 1 incident to finish 7th in 360 sprints at Hendry County Speedway. The same night at New Smyrna Speedway, Corey Luciano finished 11th. Glenn Stiers finished 13th. And then last night over at East Bay Raceway, it eventually got rained out. They finished it today. But Liam Martin and Ryan Turner tried to qualify for the High Limit Sprint Series. Didn't make the show, but good for them for going to try. Corey Luciano was 8th. He cracked the top 10 at New Smyrna. In the Pro Lates, Glenn Stiers was 13th. And then that brings us to today, where we've already talked about Trayton Lapsevich and Kyle Steckley. They are 20 laps into the 200 lapper at New Smyrna, and they both made the show. So, folks, if you know of other snowbirds that are down there racing, feel free to throw it in the comments. I mean, we could really uncover some rocks. Jonathan, do you have any other results that I didn't really cover?
I think he got everything. James Friesen followed that win up with another podium as well on, I believe it was in the first night, if I'm not mistaken, in the crates. So one of the drivers that I think is probably ready to get out of Florida, at least for now, after the short track Super Series weekend, was Matt Williamson. It was a rough time. I know, hard on the car. There was a hard impact. I was watching the highlights. I saw him get involved in another incident. So it's a tough break for Matt, but I know he's going to bounce back. One of our St. Catharines contingent. So looking forward to seeing what he can do once he gets on to Volusia and with the Super Dirt Car Series.
Yeah, guys, I got to talk
has
to
an update.
Yeah, I got to talk to Anthony, who works there with Matt, and they were telling me, I was busting their ass a bit on Saturday. I said, man, they said they're having a great time. I said, yeah, it looks like it. Running like shit and getting crashed on Friday. It can't be too much fun. But they said, they expected the track to be a little bit different. So the small block spec might have worked for them. But in the end, the big blocks were just eating them up. The track didn't slick up the way they want. But I believe they'll be back with the Buzz Chew car this weekend back at Volusia. And Matt was the dominant car there last year. So they expect a big rebound. I mean, they seem like they were in good spirits, even though the week didn't go the way they wanted. I mean, I think when you have that kind of success, once in a while you have to look at it and be like, all right, we didn't quite hit it out of the park tonight, but we're still having fun. And good job on the crew to work it all to get it back together for them for Saturday.
And of course, Chris Lawrence and Wade Thorne down there with their bone stocks. Wade Thorne with a second place finish at New Smyrna. Cole Butcher just gave up the lead at New Smyrna, and that's as much of the snowbird updates as we're going to give, because what I want to move on to is what I think is a huge topic for us who are streaming this show, for those of you who are watching this show. This has been the best year ever for short track racing in Florida. Volusia Speedway had a record crowd Saturday night. A record crowd at Volusia. They've had a lot of races there. New Smyrna Speedway tonight is basically sold out at standing room only. For the NASCAR modified race, it was standing room only. I've been to Speed Weeks during the heyday of Speed Weeks, when Daytona had 200,000 seats. The backstretch, you couldn't even get a seat in the backstretch. It was so hot. Back around 1999, 2000, right around there. And you'd go to New Smyrna and you could fire a cannon through the grandstands. There was just nobody there. Folks, why is this happening? Why are these crowds so huge? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
I think for me, when I look at it, I think there's a greater connection than ever to our local short track heroes. I think when you look at drivers at your local track, or you look at drivers on these smaller circuits, there doesn't seem to be the same it almost feels like what NASCAR probably would have felt like in the 1980s or maybe in the 90s, early 90s as well. Not that I was alive to really remember that or look at that, but it felt like there was a fan could go and they could see themselves in their drivers that they were cheering on at the racetrack. There's something relatable to them. There's a relatability to it. There's an affordability from a fan perspective. I think that makes a big difference as well. Um, and the Daytona 500 has been sold out for months, for example. There's shorter supply of that, but you can go down and really make a great trip, like we've been talking about throughout the show already, of going to New Smyrna, going to Volusia, and I think the other thing too that I personally think has really grown things is something like iRacing or even the World of Outlaws video game. I mean, for a lot of the dirt fans, Volusia was only like a thought that you maybe caught on some kind of streaming service or whatever. Now, for me, as somebody who hasn't quite hit 30 yet, not to brag, guys, but I can jump on my PlayStation and I can play Volusia in a big block modified, and I can experience what that's like, which makes me want to watch the actual racing that much more as well. Never mind the fact that I cover dirt racing with the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast, but I think there's just a better relatability to short track racing and to dirt track racing, and I think that's reflected in the people who are showing up and showing out for it.
I think that's a lot of it, Clinton.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Jonathan. I think the media, and I mean, not to toot our own horn, but shows like us, shows like Jonathan's, I think it really ties you in more and more, and it makes you more, what I like to say, immersed in the fan. As a fan, you're following these guys more. You can follow them on Facebook. So back 25 years ago, Adam, I mean, I was there in 2000 or 99. It was my first time ever here at Daytona on the backstretch when they still had it, and you couldn't get a seat. You were right. And you're right about New Smyrna and Volusia for that matter. It wasn't quite as crazy as it was now. I mean, we went to Volusia and me and Mikey left at 10 o'clock. It was just shit. But I think now you've got so much great stuff going on. They've really fine-tuned these programs. They realize, you look at the times, Adam. I mean, we left, they just shut those big lights off behind me. We left New Smyrna at 11 o'clock. They still had 4 features to go, 25 years ago. Now, what were they done the other night? 9:30, 10 o'clock? I mean, they're getting it. They realize, put on some kick-ass shows, get everybody in, get everybody out, get you back to your campsite or your condo, wherever you're staying. I think it's going to work out, and a lot of it is just the immersion. The fact that we are in so much more in touch with all these short track competitors than we ever would have been back then.
The other thing that they did, fellas, is NASCAR condensed Speed Week. Because it used to be, they'd roll in last week, they'd have the shootout and pole qualifying last weekend, so you didn't have to leave the big track. They'd have the ARCA race, they'd have the Goodies Dash race. So there was action for about 10 days on the big track. Now it's been crammed into 4 or 5 days at the big track, weather permitting. So all of these drivers are down there. You've got superstars running the dirt track, running the paved track. But what I really love, I was watching some of the pre-race show from New Smyrna. They were talking to Chase Elliott, who's racing in this ASA race at New Smyrna. Nobody was bothering him. He's just another driver in the crowd, and that's where all of these people can be. So I really do think, like you said, Jonathan, people can see themselves in the stars that they're looking at because they become so very relatable during speed weeks. But it's a huge victory for all of us because of the boom that's going on down there, right? They're actually seeing great shows. Like Clint said, these shows aren't going until midnight, 1 in the morning. These shows are being run off well. They have big fields of cars in the NASCAR Modifieds, big fields of cars. And they had more than 50 cars try to qualify for this ASA event. So it's really, really good news for race fans. So I'm pleased for all of our people who are the short track people because we're really experiencing a golden era. I mean, almost don't even realize it. Like there hasn't been a whole lot of hype, but you know damn well the promoters of these racetracks have to be thrilled because they're selling a lot of tickets and putting a lot of asses in their seats. Clint, there's a topic that's not on the rundown.
Shoot.
Do you still want to tackle it?
You we talking about prayers?
Yep.
I do. And maybe I shouldn't have cracked a beer before we got into the segment, but I will. I'm kind of nervous because I'm thinking, am I gonna piss everybody off? We're gonna be on right, but I mean, I think if you're passionate about it, it's something you're passionate about. I think it's time we get rid of the prayers at races. I mean, it infuriates me, Adam. And I mean, I'm not a God-fearing guy. I'll be straight with you. I'm not a huge religion. I'm not huge into it. But man, why do I have to listen to a prayer and praise Jesus before we go racing every week? What if I'm into Allah? Or what if I'm an atheist? Or what if I mean, all we talk about is inclusion and diversity and bringing new fans. We're just alienating them by making them praise Jesus Christ before we go racing every race. And I'm sorry, Jonathan, if you're a Christian too, but I think, and even I've said this about anthems, if we're going to have anthems, let's make them good, for crap's sakes. I mean, we've had in the past speed weeks, these last 2 weeks, probably 14 shit anthems. And Jonathan, you're a performer singer. Just because you can get on a microphone doesn't give you a right to sing this anthem. I mean, why do we have to listen to if it's going to be garbage? And the amount of, I don't know. It just, am I wrong, Adam?
Okay,
Maybe
no,
straighten me out.
it's fair.
You know,
I don't think that you're wrong, but I'm going to argue with you, Jonathan. If you have every right to plead the fifth on this one, Clint and I are old. Our careers are like, if we get canceled tomorrow, we've had a good run. But
yeah, I'm all right with it.
No, I'm 100% kind of on board with this. You know, like as a guy who was raised Catholic, but I haven't been to a Sunday mass in a really long time because I want to watch Formula One on Sunday mornings. You know, like
Sinner.
It's kind of antiquated, and I feel like you're right. It does alienate a lot of people, and I almost feel the same way with the anthem. Like, if it's not an international event like the Olympics or, you know, IIHF hockey or something like that, do you really need it? It doesn't really. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily miss it if it went away.
So
if we stopped doing anthems, if we stopped doing those kind of prayer things. But Adam, go ahead.
When Clint first brought it up, everything we talk about goes into our Rivalz race chat messenger with Clint and I and Spencer. And when Clint put that in, I kind of rolled my eyes like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm tired of this. But we have talked about it a little bit, but we don't beat it to death. I thought, you know, I'm just bored with this argument. It doesn't turn me on anymore. But I got thinking. I don't love the invocation, but I don't dislike the invocation. It's tradition, and I can get behind that. But the more I got thinking about it, the more I thought, we can get rid of the prayer, but we got to replace it with something. Because our world, and when I say ours, Canada, United States, we are as messed up as we have ever been. Right wing, left wing, people are so morally opposed that they hate each other. What always was the common denominator was religion, because everyone prayed to the same God.
Wait a minute now. I got to cut you off there.
They did.
Religion's
No, you're
a big
not.
Divider.
No,
okay,
you're
let
not.
me just cut you off.
No,
there.
you're.
Okay.
No.
You can finish your point,
you
and then I'll finish mine. Go ahead.
Finish. That's right. I'm not saying everyone has to be Christian, but what I'm saying is, in the 1970s, in the 1980s, that was the vast majority. It was something that united us. The playing of the national anthem was never a respect thing. It was a thing of, this is the moment where we appreciate our freedom, because we were very, very near a point when people died to give us those freedoms, because we've never been as far away from a world war or Vietnam as we are now. Every year that goes by, I don't remember it. I wasn't there. Clinton wasn't there. Jonathan, you sure as hell weren't there. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying there are certain things that always brought people together. People of differing opinions, differing politics, differing everything. Right now, we also have differing religions. So I'm not saying we need to pray together. That's your religion is yours, mine is mine, or your non-religion, your choice is yours. But I'm saying we do need something to show that no matter who you are, and no matter what you believe, and what you consume in media, and what you stand for, we all need to come together for something decent and appreciate that we are all in the same place to watch car racing, and that makes us part of a big family. The prayer is not it anymore, but I am saying something needs to go there to give us some unity, because we are really effed up. So there, Clint. I just wanted to get to the end of that.
Okay, so at Osh Weekend, right, we have serious social issues going on between the Six Nations residents, the Canadian government. There's a lot of hurt feelings. A lot of people don't feel that the sovereign nation of Six Nations is Canada anymore. So we've stopped playing the anthems. We've changed the northern, the Canadian Spring Car National, the Northern Spring Car National, to be respective of the neighbors and the folks that in the community we're in. But Adam, back to the prayer. I mean, why are we only recognizing Christian? It's an old thing. What if I'm Muslim and I pray to Allah? You've isolated me. What if I pray to Roy Rogers and I'm a cowboy guy and I want to wear my 6 years and my cowboy hat and say the prayer to Roy Rogers? There's so many different religions out there. Why are we picking just one? And why do I have to listen to a Christian prayer before I go to my race? I don't have to hear that before hockey. I don't have to hear that before football. And even then, the anthem is a whole other argument. But if ever there was a time to get rid of the prayer, it's now. Let's get rid of it. Abolish it. Hey, go where you want to pray. Pray what you want to pray. Say your own thing for the races. Yeah. Don't make me listen to it.
Jonathan?
I think what I'm hearing right now, Clinton, is that we need somebody out there who's a talented poet. I'm not nominating myself because I am not that talented, but I feel like we need a racer's creed almost. Like we need like a universal race, something or other that can replace the anthem that, asks for safety, asks for respect amongst competition, thanks and gives gratitude towards the fans, to the spectators, to the safety crews. Somebody out there who's far more talented than three of us needs to put pen to paper and come up with something that we can adopt. I'm here for
Adam,
that.
I nominate Jonathan. Do you second that motion?
Yeah, let's vote. Democracy.
Jonathan, write the creed. Here's my thoughts, and I'll back it up a little bit. Okay, when Peter Britton first started coming to North America to race, I was the announcer at Maryville Speedway. He came for the Super Dirt Car Series. I fought tooth and nail with my bosses, who we all know, who wanted me to play the Australian anthem. And I said, wait a minute, what if a guy shows up from Britain, and a guy shows up from Spain, and a guy shows up from Germany? Are we going to play 7 anthems in a night just to honor this one dude? Come on, I love Peter Britton. I mean, I'm a Batman fan. But we don't need to play his anthem every time he shows up to a track. And where does this craziness end? That's my argument there. You know what I mean? And why do we play the Canadian American? Well, for a lot of time, like you said, it's to bring us all together. And for a long time, we were a nation that honored the flag. We honored our neighbors in the States or vice versa. So a lot of our fans would come up, a lot of competitors. That's why we played the U.S. and Canadian anthem. And I mean, even then, I think it's time to abolish it. To answer your question, Jonathan, we don't have a racers created Oshwegan. We have the rockin', Juno-winning Derek Miller. And we have one of his rockin' tunes, and it's 7:30. That kicks off the show every night at Oshwegan, and we're ready to go racing when you hear those rockin' tunes. But, I mean, maybe I'm up on my soapbox in the wrong space. And Adam, like you said, we just bullshit and we send stuff to each other. We I want to argue about this week. And you're like, it's played out. And I'm like, all right. But here we are arguing about it.
But no,
maybe I'm wrong.
It was good conversation. The only other point I'll make that I think had a lot to do with it is when the invocation was a big thing in racing, there were a hell of a lot more race car drivers who died during the races we were praying before. And
I'll give that, but even still, Adam, it still goes back.
But still,
if I'm not a Christian guy, I don't care what your prayer is. If I'm a Muslim dude or I'm a Jewish guy, your Christian prayer don't mean shit for me keeping my guys safe in my mind. Maybe.
But at the time, if we're going back to the 50s, the 60s, they mostly did pray to pretty much the same God. So we're 50 years
there were racetracks that couldn't race on Sunday for years because it was against religious law to have anything happen on Sunday other than church.
No,
I think it was one of the Darlington, South Carolina races or something.
Spencer, can we bring in one more guest? Or do we have to say goodbye to Clint before we can say hello to our next? Let's do 4, and go ahead and bring Larry on while I'm bringing up the next topic, because Larry Jackson races in NASCAR Canada. He's run late models, he's run modifieds, he's raced lots of things, but he races with NASCAR Canada, and he is what we would refer to as the little guy. Larry Jackson, wow, and he's got flowers and everything. Larry, thanks for being here with us tonight.
For having me.
So, Tony Stewart posted the schedule for his sprint car team on Instagram. 410 sprint cars. They're going to run just shy of 90 races in 2024. Larry, you're going to run somewhere between 12 and 14 races in 2024. How much would it cost you to compete in 90 races?
In 90 races?
Yep.
14 races. Do we got an okay connection here?
It's
You're
decent.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 races probably cost bare bones 200,000, I guess.
So 90 would be 6 times that. A little more than 6 times that.
That's
So $1.2 million, $1.3 million, something around there.
Yeah, racing's ridiculous right now.
And the reason we bring this up, and we bring it up as with Larry as the guest, is, people suggested, oh, this is awesome. NASCAR's doing the Eastern Swing. They're doing Newfoundland. They're doing Riverside. They should pick up 1 or 2 races, more races on that trip so the racers could make more money. And we kind of have to debunk the way the racing business works, because with NASCAR Canada, the way it is structured, the way the cars are, the more you race, the more money you spend. Larry, is there a way to race your way into profitability in pavement racing right now?
If you have major sponsors, then it's really difficult, right? If purses don't pay enough, you don't even cover your tire and fuel bill from the purses. If you win, you might cover your
I promised Larry
entry fee, your fuel and tires, but second place doesn't pay that.
And I promised Larry this wasn't going to be a complaining session, because it is tough as the working man. Larry didn't want to come off as a whiner, but I wanted to talk about some of the differences between pavement racing and dirt racing. Clint, whether you're Tony Stewart or whether you're Jacob Allen, one of the lower funded, how can those teams afford to run 90 races a year? Even as some of the smaller guys, how can they fund themselves from track to track, from show to show?
Well, you look at a guy like Larry, for example, and he's got to put 4 new boots on that thing every night. Sprint car guys are typically not going through that at a lot of the tracks. You can make money in dirt racing. They typically, the payout versus the expense is a lot more balanced than it is on the pavement track. And we just heard Larry tell us in Canada's top series, unless you win, you're losing, which is a big problem, And thank God we have guys like Larry to keep this deal alive, because without his passion, we'd be in a lot of trouble in that deal, because it doesn't make business sense. No great businessman is coming out to racing and saying, "Oh yeah, let's do it." Like the old adage says, you want to make $1 million in racing, start with 2, right? But I think, the dirt just seems to be more conducive. I think there's, you can get in easier. You can maybe string 3 or 4 races together on a cheaper time budget than maybe like Larry would, where, I don't know, Adam, what's your answer to it? I mean, we've seen both sides of the fence. The pavement seems to need corporate help. The dirt, if you can run decent, like Larry said, you got to win in pavement to make it. I think if you're running top 10 in dirt, you're probably breaking even.
I think you'd want to do a little better than that, but one of the huge things in dirt is merchandising. All of these drivers show up with merch trailers, and they can fund their program. They can fund their travel based on shirt sales and hat sales. We don't see that on pavement. New Smyrna Speedway tonight is jam-packed with people. They don't all have Bubba Pollard or Stephen Nasse shirts. If you go to Volusia Speedway when the Outlaws are there, they all have Outlaw apparel on. And it doesn't matter
now, Adam,
who you
if I
are.
can just jump in here again, to back that up a little bit to Larry and Jonathan, too, and our interviewers, that's a big reason why these outlaw teams and high limit teams aren't interested in coming to Canada, because it gets so much hassle bringing all that inventory, and they can make $10,000 a night selling shirts that they're like, well, if I can bring my inventory, I'm not sure I really want to go there.
So, Larry, how do you feel about being the new face? You need to be the guy who everyone goes to the pavement track to buy his shirts. And you were the one who could do it. Larry the fireman, like you could have abs printed into your shirt, like you're
Captain
so
Larry,
handsome.
let's go.
That was so 25 years ago, right? Back in the day, the calendar days. But I think Jamie Hackinson, she's trying to make a go with selling merchandise at the tracks. And I was hoping to get together with them And, if we all put a little support behind them, throw some money and design T-shirts and get some rivalries going back and forth, it's definitely a thing that would, we've never really looked at. And any avenue would be great nowadays. But we got to brand ourselves, because sponsor-wise, we don't have too many of those this year. So, yeah.
We're behind you, Larry.
If
We want
I
to help
could
you
jump in
push.
for a moment.
Yeah, Jonathan, do it.
Sorry. Yeah, so I was just, going back on this whole merchandise idea, as somebody who sits kind of on the outside of motorsports, has slowly but surely gotten further and further into covering motorsports in Canada. If you're somebody who has a t-shirt business or a merchandising, a licensing business, this is a great in. What we're hearing is that we have a problem and we have an area where there can be a solution. So as much as I think the series and drivers are responsible for maybe making these connections, if there's somebody out there who's screen printing t-shirts right now in their garage looking for a way to expand their business or find new clients, I think going to the local short tracks, going to the asphalt tracks, talking to drivers, talking to teams, that could be a really great way to get into motorsports, get your brand out there, and not just and kind of help out the little guys as well and keep the sport running and keep the sport alive. So I just see a great, I see a void, and I see a great opportunity for Canadian small business to jump on and get associated with guys like Larry Jackson.
So, Larry, I'll ask you this, and I think this is where you're going to shine. Why do it? You've got nothing to prove. You've had your success in racing. You've done a lot of things. Why do you grind it out like you do?
I think to make my wife Wendy angry. No, 50 years old this year. My kid's off in school. My wife's in corporate Canada, so she works and travels like crazy. I live for my 3-year-old little puppy, and most of the time I have lots of time to spend at the shop. And I love tinkering, and I love road racing, and I love racing. It's such a terrible addiction. I keep buying all these cars and great cars and nice truck and trailer. It's that $50,000 to $60,000 to $70,000 tire bill a year. That's the toughest thing to pay for. If it wasn't a tire bill and they let me, start on used tires, I think I could, somehow manage and still finish in top 10 with used tires and not spending. If you buy, a practice set and then 2 sets for the race, that's $6,600 right there. And I think fifth place pays $6,000, right? So, or whatever.
Yeah, it's tough. And I don't know if Clinton is super happy or if we lost him. I think we lost him. At first, I thought he was just loving what you had to say. And then I realized he hasn't blinked in like 5 minutes. But it shows how much you love it, Larry. It is fun to watch you go racing, but you really put it in perspective. When you talk about $6,000 for one race, that's just to put tires on your car. That doesn't take any crew people to Newfoundland or Edmonton or Saskatoon or wherever the series is going on a given weekend. That's just to put rubber on the race car. And I want to explain this before. We're not shooting down the NASCAR Canada. It is the formula that CASCAR ran under. It's the formula NASCAR's been under since they took over in 2007. The business model is you've got to go out and sell $250,000 or more in sponsorship. Once you do that, anything you make at the racetrack is gravy. And there's people who do a very good job of that. Your Andrew Rangers, your Alex Tagliani, a bad example this year because he doesn't have his deal, but he's already made his living based on what he has pre-sold, and then he can go and race. That's just the way the model has been. The model can be very effective, but it's not all that great for a firefighter from Oakville who doesn't have that marketing background to go out and sell a car. And Larry, you've done really well at selling deals, but they come and go.
I got some amazing people in my corner, right? My wife is corporate Canada. She has CPG Canada. She doesn't believe in sponsorship stuff, and she's the one cutting the big checks for other stuff and doing commercials, but she doesn't love racing. It's hard
to quantify.
Pardon me?
It's tough. It's hard to quantify because your wife wants answers, right? In a corporate job, she is accountable to somebody and she has to show the value. If she wants to write a $50,000 check, there has to be a return on that investment. Did my computer just freeze? Okay, Larry, you're cutting out, so let's cut you short. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with us, folks.
Okay.
Larry Jackson, one of the true gentlemen.
Hey, Jonathan, I think it's Adam, isn't it?
I can go.
I didn't hear you either, Larry. Now you're back, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Now he's back.
Well, you were gone there for
wild. Well, Larry, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you. And folks, Larry Jackson races with NASCAR Canada, journeyman driver, and just a hell of a nice guy. He's the first to the party, the last to leave the party, and always with a smile on his face.
It's always a good time. Thanks, guys.
All right. Larry Jackson out of Oakville, Ontario. Jonathan, so you announce at Merrittville Speedway. You host a podcast. You and Travis Cunningham doing great things. Do you have background in being a race fan, following what goes on with the APT series or going to different racetracks? Where did you spend your time?
So I grew up a big fan of all the major series, really. I was really invested in NASCAR first and foremost. Merrittville I'd gone to a couple of times as a kid. I remember one of my best friends, Vincenzo, when we were kids. He was a big Pete Bicknell fan, and all he did was talk about how Pete was as good as a Jimmy Johnson or as good as a Jeff Gordon. And I was like, okay, yeah. And he's like, no, you don't understand the history and the legacy that this guy's carving out. And now I'm immersed in that legacy because, he's our defending track champion in 358 modified. I had the extreme honor of inducting him to the Wall of Fame at Merrittville 2 years ago now. So it's funny how, I kind of had gotten away from all motorsports, and I pursued music for most of my early 20s. And as I got into broadcasting, I had a co-op, which led to a chance encounter with Perry Lefko, the writer, and he had a connection with Ron Fellows. And Ron Fellows was like, if you want to be a broadcaster, just go and call your local track and see if they've got a job or if they've got an opportunity for you. And that's really where I got sucked back in a way that I didn't even see coming, really. And now I can't imagine not being immersed in the world of dirt. And as I've gotten more into the dirt world, and thanks to things like GeForce TV, I've been able to keep a track of more short track racing than I ever really realized was right under my nose in Southern Ontario.
No, for sure. There is a lot of it. And you've done well. And to get advice from Ron Fellows is gifted. He has the ability to walk into a boardroom and be impressive, or to walk into your neighborhood garage where people are working on their cars and be equally as impressive. He's just a unique character with a lot of class and a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, he gave me a ton of time. I think we had maybe I think I sat on the phone with him for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes while I was in my car in the parking lot of Mohawk College, like one of my last days or weeks at the school in the radio broadcasting program. And he kind of laid it all out for me and said, the best opportunities are the ones you end up making for yourself. So go and see what you can find out there. And you never know where that's going to take you, right? I go back to my high school yearbook, and it says in 20 years, I think it says in 20 years, I'm going to be on stage at Wembley Stadium playing guitar, or I'm going to be calling the Daytona 500. So I'm shooting for the stars here, but you never know.
If you don't try, you're never going to get there. So let's bring on our next guest. We kind of lined up tonight with some working class guests, because we had Larry Jackson from NASCAR Canada. From there, we go to Cambridge, Ontario, to Blair Wicket, the Polar Blair, who is a self-funded racer in the APC series. Blair Wicket, how you doing, man?
Good, how are you? Can you guys hear me?
Hear you just great.
Okay, sorry, my headphones weren't connecting there. I was getting a little worried.
No, we're all good. I'm glad we've got you. You're watching the race from New Smyrna?
I am. I got right on my phone right here in front of me.
See, they're showing Kyle Steckley right now scrubbing his tires in the 30 car. I'm not sure where he's running, but he has advanced from his starting position. So a good outing for him so far. Blair, does that get you pumped up?
It does for sure. Like we race against these guys every week. Do I get to keep up with them? A little bit off of them, but no, for sure we get to run side by side with these guys, and we see them down there. They're made the show. Like I don't know what more you could ask for. That's a huge accomplishment for them. So,
there was a time, Blair, when you were cutting your teeth. If you got into the invert, that was a big deal. You got into the top 10, and then you had some good runs, and then you cracked some top 5s. Where do you set your expectations? This year is going to be a really interesting year for the APC series with some of the talent that has gone elsewhere and some that don't. They'll run some APC, but that's not where their focus is. Do you see this as your opportunity to step it up, Blair, and maybe steal a win, get on the podium? What are you looking at this season?
yeah, for sure. Every year we just look to improve a little bit more on the year prior, and I believe that we've done that. But this year, I really want to try consistently finishing in the top 5. If not, try getting towards a win if I can. But like I said, it's all the way the cards fell. We put in the work here in the shop every off week and every week prior to the race. So it's not by a lack of effort, that's for sure. But no, definitely I want to try and get top 5 this year consistently.
Jonathan, what do you got for our friend Blair?
Well, I wanted to ask Blair, you mentioned the effort, and it is obvious that you guys are putting in effort. You don't get to the level that you're at without serious effort. But when we talk about some of the talent that was now taken to the road from the APC series and traveled elsewhere, you mentioned trying to keep up with them. Is it a dollar figure that is maybe the roadblock to being as competitive as those guys? Or do you feel like it's an experience and taking another year under your belt like this year is going to help you close that gap that much more?
Honestly, it's a factor of both. Everybody knows to do well in racing, you have to have money. Money buys speed in a lot of cases, but also talent and experience. It does a lot too. Of course, I've noticed just coming from weekly racing, joining the series, experience on my half, I've improved a tremendous amount. So yes, money does definitely buy speed, but it's not all money based. And I think our team proves that. And I think a lot of people notice that we run on a very limited budget compared to the people that we race against. And I think a lot of people do see that. And I hope that it shows other people that you can run this series on a limited budget.
Clint, welcome back. We lost you for a few minutes. You talk to Blair more than anybody, Clint, when it comes to being at the racetrack because you're down trackside.
Unfortunately, I haven't got to talk to Blair for the right reasons. Like I tell all my buddies, make sure you're talking to us for the right reasons over on Victory Lane and not because you're in a trouble down the infield or in turn 2. But, Blair, 2 questions. First off, you had a terrible luck the last 3 to 4 years, let's say. I think your things may be turning around a little bit. First off, how do you reset every week to go back for that? And the second question I got for you is, where are we at with the APC series? We hear a lot of people talking. We see a lot of people moving in, moving out. What do you tell people when they say, oh, the APC series is in trouble? Us as the broadcast partners, we've had to defend it a lot, but I think it's on solid ground. What are you telling the people who are talking about the APC series?
I think no matter what, you're going to have people leaving and people coming in. It's just new talent coming in. I don't think that we're losing that talent base, or I don't think we're really losing too much of a car count from last year. I think we're just getting more new talent. Obviously, you got the JR Fitzpatricks that are stepping away. But we have other people that have just bought in late models that are trying to get their feet wet, and that's where I was a couple years ago, right? So, I don't think we're in a panic situation for the APC series. I think it's just a better opportunity for the people that have been in the series for a little bit, like myself, to now make our names in the series while rookies start cutting their teeth.
No, and I think that's well said, Blair. And you look at youngsters. I think Cole Quinton is going to step up. I think he's going to make a splash. And there's names like that all over the place. Ray Morneau, if they can get the right amount of funding, you'll see them run more and more. But Blair, we'll ask you the same as we asked Larry Jackson. We were talking about sprint car racing. Some of these sprint car teams run 90 races a year. Can you imagine? What will you run this year? Maybe 16 shows?
I think so 9 for the APC series plus the Hanley and then the Grisdale's Triple Crown is what we got. So what's that? 11 races?
Can you imagine putting together a 90 race schedule? Could you do it?
Not at our level that we race at. We just race out of a little 2-car garage. Unfortunately, I'd love to show you, but it is a complete disaster right now from one end to the other. Just parts stacked on top of each other, just trying to get this car ready. But no, in the off weeks, this garage is like a bomb explodes. I couldn't imagine having to flip this car over week to week, if not multiple times a week.
You actually wouldn't see your garage very much. I mean, these teams live on the road. What keeps you motivated, Blair? Because again, your main sponsor last year for a lot of the season was Polar Blair Motorsports, which is you. What keeps you driven to keep showing up and keep competing?
I think I touched on it last time I was on here. It's the family. It's me and my dad doing this together. It's what drives us, and to know that we can put a car together and go out there and compete with some of the best, right, in Ontario, if not pass them and beat them eventually, right? So I think that's what drives us, and knowing that we didn't come from a racing family. My dad, he raced motocross. I played hockey growing up. We didn't have anybody that raced stock cars like a lot of these other guys do that have that knowledge to lean on. I lean on Jason Shaw when I first started. Steve Laking gives me a lot of knowledge now, and everybody else that helps me out. It's learned over the last couple of years here that we are able to put it all together and go out there and race with these guys that have all this the funds, the knowledge, and the support, right? So that's kind of what keeps us motivated.
Blair, I'll tell you one thing. Your interviews are getting better and better all the time. You're fun to talk to. Jonathan, is there anything else you'd like to hear from Blair before we set him loose to watch the end of New Smyrna?
Well, as somebody who covers mostly the dirt world as opposed to the asphalt world, if anybody from the dirt world was thinking of getting out to an APC race, what is the one race or one racetrack that you recommend us dirt guys have to make a trip to this year?
Definitely, probably, I'm going to say the first Sunset race, because 200 lappers, we're probably going to do a lot of dirt tracking out there. We'll be sideways off that corner.
How about you, Clint?
Love it.
Just Blair, your qualifying's been really good the past few years. What can you do in your game to make sure you're there at the end of these long races?
So I'm trying my best right now to get in shape. I know with these 200 lapper, 300 lap races, man, I was struggling to do 100 lap races a couple of years ago, and so I'm trying to get my fitness level up. But no, just getting mentally strong, physically strong, just making sure that I'm in the best shape I can, and getting in the right headspace to go to these races.
When are we going to play racquetball?
I don't even know what racquetball is, so whenever you show me what that is.
Didn't we talk about going out to play racquetball at the Y?
I probably agreed just to hang out with you.
Wow, I appreciate that.
Hey, if you guys are
we
playing
had this.
racquetball, we're sending cameras because I gotta see that. Adam Ross playing racquetball. Hey, you gotta have like the '70s headband, right? And you gotta do it up right, Adam.
I
want the wristbands and everything.
I think the last time I saw Adam Ross at the gym, it was at actually an 80s themed night or whatever, and he did. He had the neon shirts, the headband, the wristbands, all that.
That's where I got the idea from.
Racquetball, Clint, you're gonna eat more bananas.
Don't start, John.
That's it.
Yeah.
Blair,
Thanks, Blair.
Yeah, no worries,
Thanks
guys.
for joining us, man. We'll see you at the races. And that was our working class night, guys. Larry Jackson and Blair Wicket, a couple of great guests. And we're not done yet. We got a couple of topics. And Clint, I am really interested in hearing your opinion as Derek Griffith has just got out of his car at New Smyrna, pulled the window net down from his competitor, and he is chewing him a new one in turn number 2. But that's not what I want to talk about. A post from High Limit Racing went to Volusia, and a high limit race broke out. That was their entire post. And then someone came on to comment, please don't do this every time a high limit guy does well against the Outlaws. It's already annoying. Can't we all just enjoy the damn sprint car racing? And then they came on to reply and said, yeah, not only did we do this week, we're going to do it every time our drivers go somewhere and shine, regardless of where it is. Clint, bad form? Is it seizing the opportunity? How do we feel about this?
I mean, you got a knife fight going on here between the top 2 sprint car, contingency series, whatever, tours, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I mean, all's fair in love and war, man. And I think the High Limit Series, keep promoting your guys. Hey, they're making tweets and they're including the Outlaws in it. And, like you told me many years ago, I don't care what you say about me, just spell my name right. So as long as you're spelling O right, I don't think they got anything to bitch about whatever the High Limit guys have to say. Yeah, I mean, the guys that chose to be on my team, you're damn right I'm going to be out there promoting them, especially if they're playing on your rink every Saturday or Tuesday, Friday or Monday, whatever day it is. My guys are kicking in your field. I'm going to be tweeting about it. Great form.
Jonathan, is all fair in love and war and dirt racing?
I'm here for it. I think it's kind of a new age mentality. I think you're seeing younger and younger folks step up to be a part of marketing teams and social media teams in all sports, really. Like, how many times is there a controversy because the Carolina Hurricanes sent out a tweet that's a bit of a chirp to the team that they beat in the NHL game the night before, right? Like, I think this all kind of makes sense, and I'm here for it. And I think this is how you hook people in. This is how you go viral. This is how you get the attention of somebody who might be a casual fan or just a Kyle Larson fan who happens to follow High Limit and doesn't know a ton of dirt stuff yet. But, everybody's looking for an angle. I think the docu-series, the Drive to Survive sort of stuff has kind of maybe not run its course necessarily, but I think that idea has been done. So why not keep the socials fresh? I personally love what the High Limit are doing with the DJ sessions and having drivers share their personality through music on the nights. I think this is a good idea, all things considered, and I'm here for it. And I'm really loving what the High Limits are doing. I like them taking the fight to the World of Outlaws.
In one case, it's a very rare instance where they are equal foes, even though the World of Outlaws have been around a long, long time. High Limit has immediately put themselves, I would argue, at pretty much the same level as the World of Outlaws, based on the people running it, based on the money they're paying. So it really is a neat head-to-head battle that they could probably both benefit from.
I just see Fran's comment there. Says he got hooked on watching the 70s. It was Terry St. Amand against Bob Webster in the late models, most likely. It's funny. I just had to comment that because I sent Terry St. Amand, who lives here in Daytona now full time, and said, "Hey, Red Dog, I'm in town. Let's go for wings one day this week." He said anytime. So great to see Terry St. Amand anytime we can. I think there's anytime you can get out there and promote your own deal. It's a tough battle, and I don't think there's anything wrong. They're not talking negatively about the World of Outlaws, saying, hey, the guy who waving our flag is winning. I like it.
And I'll tell you what, we're going to brag about the fact that Liam Martin just qualified for a High Limit sprint car race. That's our Ashwegan boy right there. So
damn right.
So folks, along the same veins of a 90 race schedule, Noah Gass announced he was going to be chasing the World of Outlaws tour. They recently put out this announcement by social media. People have been asking where I've been this first World of Outlaws weekend after we announced we would be returning full time. The truth is, the last 2 years of racing have beat me down. I have little to no confidence left in myself, so I ultimately decided committing to a third season with the World of Outlaws was going to be too much. The past 2 years were tougher than I ever imagined. We dove in head first. Many doubted us, hell, even I did. We did make it through, and I'm proud of our team. But what most don't see is the toll it does take mentally, physically, and emotionally. Racing with the Outlaws is tough, no doubt about it. These guys are the best of the best, something I strive to be someday. But that day isn't right now. I learned so much being on the road, but I need to get my confidence back as a driver, something I have lost over time. After much discussion with my team, we decided that we were going to make our own schedule. We don't want to feel any pressure this season. We want to focus on having fun as a team and going to tracks we enjoy and staying closer to home, racing mainly in the Midwest region. Yes, we will still run some outlaw events along with High Limit, Power I, IRA, ASCS, and local events as well. Heck, we may even break out the midget or show up at Port City to run our micro. Currently, I feel this is what's best for me. No pressure, having fun, and gaining my confidence back. Then when I am ready, we'll be back more full-time and have the confidence I need to be more competitive. Thank you to everyone who has supported our team and continues to do so. What's our first thought on that first reaction, Jonathan?
I think that's just such a shame. I mean, of all the years to, I don't want to say drop off the World of Outlaws tour, but you have to think there's a lot of guys who maybe have been considered midfield, maybe guys who have struggled to make the show every single week and wanting to jump on the tour. Now is a great time. I don't want to say there's a large opening to be a contender in terms of winning races all the time. There's still tons of talent in that series. But if you wanted to be a guy who could run with the Outlaws regularly, get that show up money, get that start money, it just sucks that now is the time that you're feeling so burnt out that you have to step back from it. It's just bad timing. It's unfortunate to see.
Clint? Oh, Clint, we can't hear you. I can't.
They got music going in the background, so I muted my thing. Sorry, guys. There, I think there's a couple things going on there. For one, racing, and a lot of times you'll do it for other people, for your sponsors, for your team, for your parents. You need to do it for yourself. And I mean, I seen that first with my brother Mike. He's like, man, I'm not feeling it tonight. I'm not doing it. And I'd be like, man, you got a car. You're a good racer. What do you mean you're not doing it? But Adam, as someone who's a health champion yourself, you have to know if you're not mentally into this game, it will tear you apart. And I think by putting that statement out, clearly lays out what the plan is, clearly lays out what the issue was, and will prevent Noah from having to answer a lot of shitty questions for the next month of why aren't you here, why aren't you there. It clearly lays it out. Hey, you can get burnt out in this game, and if you don't address that, you will wash yourself right out of the game. And we've seen a lot of great racers walk away from this sport because it just got to be too much too fast. And it's good to see a driver have the maturity, let's say, to realize that racing isn't everything, and sometimes you have to back it up and reset and get goals straight. And what I heard most about that, he's got clear goals. Go back, get the fun back into it, race near home, dabble when we can, when it feels good. All those things make me feel good about Noah and what he's got planned. And hey, that's a guy I want to root for now because he realized what the problem was before he burned himself out and took steps to make it right. And Adam, I know that's something in your world is a big thing. It's recognize you got a problem, but it's a whole other thing to have the balls to step up and make those changes you need to fix what's wrong in your life.
I think he made a lot of fans by doing that. A long time ago, I taught young racers, part of how to market themselves. And one of the biggest things you got to do is tell the truth. Don't just post when things go well. Post when they don't go well, because that shows a true measure of your character. And that's very real. To me, Noah Gass was just another name in the results sheet. Now, I know a little bit about him. When I see him at the tracks, I hope he does well. Hope he's getting his confidence back. I know him a little better than I did 2 days ago. So I think that's really cool. Well said. Jonathan, your first gig hosting with us, thank you so much. I know I talked an awful lot tonight, but I appreciate you coming on and helping us.
Happy to be here anytime. I'd love to come back whenever you can have me. And of course, I had to represent too. I've got the Merrittville shirt on. That's gonna be right around the corner. Be here before you know it. So can't wait for local racing to get going, and I can't wait to see you guys at Oshweekend as well. So.
Well, Jonathan, you're
we look
hired. I
forward to
quit.
seeing you.
It's your show now. You and Adam. I'll sit here and stay in Daytona and drink the Coors Light all night. But no, great job, Jonathan. And I got to throw a couple kudos to Jonathan. I think it was Stephen Petty, and the first night I heard Jonathan, I messaged Stephen Petty. I said, "Who's that?" He's got it. So, Jonathan, you've done a great job. You've been a great friend to the sport here in Niagara and everything. And, hey, it's great to be able to call you up, your own podcast. I mean, it's guys.
Oh, of course he freezes when he's kissing my butt. No!
We may never know. It's guys like you that make me want to quit. No, I don't think that's where he was going, but we'll never know. Folks, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate the sentiment.
In coming weeks, we're going to start to set up local seasons, so we'll probably have Jonathan back on to talk about Merrittville. We're going to talk to some of our Canadian racers, and did they find success in Florida? Did they have heartbreak in Florida? That's what's coming up in the coming weeks. So to Jonathan, thanks for joining us. To Spencer, thank you as always for your great work, and we will see you all next Tuesday night.